Good morning and welcome back to Topical Thursday on Gaming with ADHD. All right, so for today, I am going to be talking about my trip last week to GenCon 2021. Just going to kind of give a recap on what I did, what I saw. Probably won't be that exciting, but do need to get content out there, and I figured, at least talk a little bit about the stuff that I saw, stuff that I picked up, and we'll go from there. So, as I've mentioned before, I get to volunteer from time to time to help out Mantic Games, either through running demos, mostly helping out at conventions, because I've got plenty of vacation time and I need something to use it on. So, I've been helping out with GenCon for about the last decade. So, my trip started by flying out Monday morning to Chicago with my son. He got to go with me this time. And basically, we fly to Chicago so that we can help load up the truck. And then on Tuesday morning, we'll drive down to the show. The temperature was nice. I'm in Arizona. But it was a little bit nicer in Chicago, except when we were in the storage unit, loading everything up, because there's absolutely zero air circulation, and so it's very muggy, very stagnant. But that's nothing new. It is what it is. It's Chicago in summer. Deal with it. That night, we did get to play the Dune board game from Gale Force 9. That's the one that is basically a recreation of the original Avalon Hill game. My son and I, playing the Atreides and the Fremen, lost horribly. But we did like the game. We actually really enjoyed it. It captures the feel of Dune. And I was very excited to finally get to try it. I will bring that up in a little bit when I talk about other stuff that I've picked up. All right, so that was Monday. Then on Tuesday, we actually drove from Indianapolis to Chicago. It's about a 3-hour drive, no big deal. I'd do a 3-hour drive anytime. And main reason we do that is because Gen Con does allow a Tuesday setup, which we have actually done the last few shows that I've helped out with. Tuesday setup is 100% worth it. You get most of your setup done while there are fewer exhibitors in attendance, and so it actually allows for fine-tuning on Wednesday before the show actually starts on Thursdays. Now, the one thing that is absolutely horrible here is that at the convention center, it's still humid, it's still hot, and because of the cost of running the air conditioning, which I have heard is about hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, basically it's not worth it, and so it's just hot and muggy and gross and even more stagnant than the storage unit in Chicago. I have actually seen companies, they will bring giant, industrial fans and use that to blow at least some air, to make it at least a little bit more tolerable. But obviously at the cost to run the air conditioning, I get it, especially with bay doors open, things like that. There's no reason to keep that AC on. Now, that night, I did not get to play any games, but one thing I will say is it's been kind of fun to actually watch, because every year our setup time seems to get a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. This year we added a pallet jack, and so instead of making multiple trips, we took 3 trips to bring all the boxes out, a couple of trips to bring our display shelves, so basically we could knock everything out really fast, got most of our setup done, and just needed to do a little bit of fine-tuning the next day, so that was great. Now, Wednesday, because we had most of our setup done on Tuesday, my son and I got to go into the dealer's hall and actually go and say hi to some friends. I've been doing this for a long time, so I've made friends all over the industry. And so we just kind of wandered around, saw who was setting up, saw what was there. Lets us get a little bit of a sneak preview, which was nice. And what we ended up doing is we actually ended up helping out Catalyst Game Labs with their booth setup. I've got a lot of friends over there, and so I don't mind helping out. And, basically we did that for at least a couple of hours until we were needed for the Mantic setup over in the gaming hall. Now, in the gaming hall, we had 4 round tables for the Mantic board games and about 5 8x5 tables for miniatures games, and then 1 set of tables for the Kings of War big game. The Kings of War big game was about 20,000 points per side. A standard game is about 2,000 points, so these are massive armies. Trident Realms versus the Demon faction, which I can't remember the name of the faction off the top of my head, but basically those were the 2 factions that were there, and so we set up 1 table for Hellboy, 1 table for the Walking Dead Walker Challenge. I ran Hellboy this year, but in years past I've ran the Walking Dead Walker Challenge, which is a really fun event. There was a table for Star Saga, and the new game on the scene was the League of Infamy. Those were set up on the round tables. On the miniatures tables, we had 1 guy in our crew. He sets up how he wants to run it, what the events are, and he is a machine with it. He was running Vanguard. He did a Kings of War. It's called the How You Use It tournament. Basically, he already has a bunch of armies, so he brings those in, sets those up, and you're playing your opponent as opposed to your opponent's army. So maybe it's somebody who plays dwarves all the time. Well, it doesn't matter because the players are moving around, but the armies aren't. So he may have to play Forces of Nature or Trident Realms or the Dark Elf faction, which I can't remember off the top of my head either. But so he was running Vanguard, Kings of War, and the new Age of Sail game, Armada, and he just turns that out all weekend. He gets constant people coming in, playing the games, trying out, and it's always good to see our crew. I do think Mantic Games has one of the best crews in the business. And so after we had everything set up, we didn't get to play any games because we all went out to dinner as a crew. It was really good time. Nice to be able to catch up with everybody, see people that I haven't been able to see for a couple of years. All right, so that takes us through Wednesday. So then we go to Thursday. So on Thursday, we've got games all day. Nearly every event was sold out. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody showed up for the event, but at least in ticket pre-sales, they were effectively sold out, which is very different from years past. But I think because of when the event was being held, and you've got lower exhibitor attendance, lower overall attendance. I heard they had capped it at about 50%, which is going to be anywhere from 20 to 30,000 people or so. There were just even less people to run events. So I think people were signing up for things just because there was less even to do. Now, that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. I think it was still fun. We ran some great events. My games supported 4 players at a time, and the fewest I had was 3 players. So that wasn't really an issue at all. Now, one thing I do want to point out, because this is now talking about the show actually being in play. So GenCon obviously was concerned about, what's been going on in the world. So they promised more spacing between event tables. They required masking. The spacing for the event tables, I will be honest, I didn't see it. The tables did not seem any further apart than in years past. It, I am not concerned. I am from Arizona. We don't have any kind of a statewide mask mandate, and most businesses do not require them anymore either. So personally, I was not concerned, but with all of the big deal made about social distancing and masking, that was a bit disappointing to see, because they were saying that they would be, they would do all of these things, and to me, it didn't materialize. If it's not going to go through, don't talk about it, in my opinion. Now, the other thing is that GenCon did require masking in all public spaces, basically. So if you were in the dealer's hall, if you were at a gaming table, whatever, you were supposed to be masked. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Again, being from Arizona and not having to wear it, I wasn't comfortable, especially because I was there for 8 or more hours at a time wearing it. It did not help that it felt like my beard was being torn out of my face, and I wanted to just tear my entire face off. So that was horrible, but I did it as best I could. I did move it a lot because I needed to scratch my face, but that is a separate issue. My biggest issue as far as the mask mandate was concerned is that there were multiple areas throughout the hall, be it mostly around concession areas, but they had mask break areas. They did encourage you to only stay there for about 30 minutes, but again, the tables were not kept, they were not kept separate. They were in very open areas, where there was generally a high amount of traffic. So if you're going to make a mask mandate that has to be applied through the entire show, in my opinion, it should be through the entire show. If you need food, if you want to do something, you should have to step outside, in my opinion, but that was not my call to make. It was just a bit frustrating because, if it's such a big deal, why are you allowing it in these areas? To me, I think it made the masking just appear that it was more for show. Again, personal opinion. I don't have any issues if anyone wants to wear a mask. I would even be okay if a game master at the table said, "Hey, for this scenario, I would prefer that everyone wear a mask." But obviously, that is not my call or my decision to make. I did as best I could with it, but there it is. So, what did I get to play that day? Well, I played a lot of Hellboy. That was the event that I was running, and I have to say I am disappointed in myself because I hadn't played it sooner. I learned how to play it Wednesday afternoon just to get the rules under my belt. I know that I missed about 10% of the rules, but I knew it enough that I could teach people how to play and make sure that they had a good time. And that is pretty much what happened. I think the game absolutely captures the feel of Hellboy. It's an investigation, it's a dungeon crawl, and I don't know who in our crew did the painting for the models, but they did them absolutely fantastically. So it was a great show for the players to be able to come in and have some great miniatures to play with and a great game. There was even a fun scenario. They're told to go and find an artifact, and as soon as they find the artifact, then it changed the game. And so then they had to, then you would actually flip the board over because we glued the tiles down. And so, as soon as that happened, they're like, "Oh, wait a second, what's going on here?" And it was a lot of fun, and everybody enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to be getting it out to do some reviews on the channel here, soon. The other thing that I got to play was the G.I. Joe deck building game. Now, funny to me story, I had heard it announced a couple of months ago, and I got pretty excited for it. I'm a child of the 80s. G.I. Joe was absolutely my jam growing up, and to see that there was a game coming out, I was really excited. So Thursday morning, I picked that up like right away. Then exhibitors get to get into the dealer's hall a little early, obviously for setup, cleanup, things like that. So I did that before heading over to the event hall and grabbed a copy of G.I. Joe. It absolutely captures the feel of G.I. Joe. I felt like I was, getting my Joes and building a team and going out to stop Cobra. That is exactly what I want from a G.I. Joe game. I also want a rule book that makes sense. It's not horrible. It's not the worst rule book I've ever seen, but it was rough. We think we have everything figured out. We haven't played a full game yet, but I really liked the feel of it. That's going to be one of the first games that I do an unboxing and review of. But there are other things, causing some issues with my time. But regardless, I'm really happy with it. I'm glad I got it. The funny thing about it is when I saw it announced, they were just putting it into regular release, no Kickstarter, but I sent it to my wife, and for some reason she was completely against getting it, which I don't know why. But my son and I actually played a trick on her because the other guy we were sharing the room with, he also picked it up. And so my son and I took a picture of it and sent it to my wife saying, well, he decided that he wanted to start his own board game collection this year, and so we both got a copy of it, and she got even more angry with us, which just made us all laugh. And no, we didn't actually buy 2 copies, but that's a separate story. Anyways, G.I. Joe, the deck building game. Definitely more coming soon on that one. All right, so then Friday, basically the same as Thursday. More gaming, more Hellboy. Basically a repeat of Thursday. Outside of the events, I didn't really play anything. My roommate and another guy from our crew was playing a new wrestling game from SRG. I do not know much about it. I just know that I played WWE Raw back in the day, and while they said that this is different, it does absolutely capture the wrestling feel, and they really enjoyed it. So I didn't pick it up, but I definitely want to know more about it, and I will be looking at it as time goes on. Who knows? Maybe I'll grab some later on. All right, so Saturday, due to scheduling, I actually didn't have any events, but I was actually the one in charge of our gaming area, making sure that across all of the tables that players were getting checked in. That does give the company credit for the event, so so we needed to make sure that was all done properly. So I did that. But in between, I got to go into the event hall and, see it a little bit more close up. The hall was really interesting. It was only at about 50% capacity. They had lots of areas just blocked off. Typically the dealer's hall is absolutely packed. And so only about 50% capacity. I didn't see a lot of new stuff. There was obviously the G.I. Joe card game. There was a Transformers card game that another guy on our crew picked up and did like. But beyond that, there wasn't a ton new. It seemed like it was a bit of a filler year. Basically, companies trying to keep their heads up above water, get a little bit more marketing. I honestly don't blame them, with everything going on. It's not really their fault how things worked out, but it is what it is. The oddest part to me was the missing booths throughout the hall. There were a couple of spots where there was a vendor that didn't show up. The biggest name that I saw was the Table of Ultimate Gaming. But they went out of business a few months ago, so that doesn't surprise me either. But there were a lot of places where you'd have, say, 20 by 40 area that was just open. Normally it would be packed with booze, but in this case there were, like they would put in these murals that are done by Kathleen Hardy. Every year she does a different GenCon mural, and then just other random things like a giant GenCon sign or a giant dragon. Just some sort of filler to make it seem a little less empty. So that was the biggest thing that I saw that day. Lots of smaller companies that I hadn't seen before. Nothing really jumped out at me as stuff that I had to have. But it was nice to actually see some new companies still showing up. As far as what I played on Saturday, my son and I got to go and play a game with the Shadowrun line developer, Jason Hardy. He was the one running the game, and I have to say, I learned a lot from this game, both in terms of how to run a game and also how to run a pickup game. Because we had nothing to do, so I asked Jason if he would be willing to run a game of Shadowrun, and he didn't have anything else going on either. So we decided to do a pickup game. That's actually one thing that, like in years past, normally I am swamped even after the dealer's hall closes. Mantic does Mantic Night. Other companies have big things going on. So for exhibitors to be able to get together and play games is a lot more rare. And so this was really nice for Jason being able to give up some of his time, run a game. But we had a good crew together. His wife, his son, the Shadowrun art developer or art director, myself, my son, and a random Catalyst person that I don't know. But we all got together, and he we didn't make any characters. He just took cards from the Rogues Gallery and just handed those out. And so that was what everybody used for a character. To me, it was great. I didn't have to think about it. I just said, I'll fill in a role that we don't have yet. We needed a defensive mage, so he grabbed one, gave it to me. My son got a firearms-oriented street samurai. The art director got a blades-oriented street samurai. His son got a face, and his wife got a combat mage, which was very different for her apparently. But that's fine. I think it worked really well. It just gave everybody enough skills, their attributes, and everything so that they could go in and run a game. Now, one tip I will give you is always look at what the guards are wearing. I'll go into it more in detail when I do a review of the session, just because, like I said, there was a lot that I learned. But regardless, it was great fun. I'm glad we got to go play that. All right, so that takes us to Sunday. Sunday was the final day of the show. Final day is always bittersweet. You've had 4 days seeing friends around, sometimes in passing, because you're walking by their booth. Sometimes they've come to your booth. Sometimes they've come to your game, whatever it is. But it's going to come to an end. So you make sure to get your hugs in, say goodbye, say thank you, whatever it is. I spend a lot of time on Sunday trying to get us organized because I'm in charge of making sure that we have dock space for the truck. Because of how we've done some things, we have to be a little bit more particular. Had to be a little bit more particular this year, but I was also first in line to get our truck situated, so that made it easier. Now, when I go to work for Mantic, they just give me trade credit. I don't actually get paid. I don't mind. I love it. It's just a lot of fun, and so I don't mind being given goodies. The downside is I have most of the stuff from Mantic, so what we also get to do is product trade. We can go to other companies, see if they're interested. I always have a trade partner in Catalyst. Usually it's Jason, but it can be anyone else at the booth. And so that's good because between Battletech and Shadowrun, there are a lot of products that I want from them. So it's always nice to have something to trade. And usually they'll want something from Mantic. So, it's always good there. Now, I only got a couple of books, but I also lucked out because I also ended up with a copy of Sprawl Ops as a thank you for them from them for our help during setup. So that was actually really cool. So I ended up with some extra stuff. And then when we were talking and my son was trying to figure out, we were talking about what we wanted to get. He had mentioned that he wanted some of the resin figures from Succubus Publishing for Madara. Now, we didn't have Madara. I only knew of its existence, but he wanted to get some of those resin figures. So I told him the rest of the credit was his, and it was up to him to negotiate the deal. He talked to our boss, and he ended up getting the game, which that was its own, slight hot mess in and of itself. But basically, he ended up trading for the core game and 7 out of the 10 resin figures. So, that was actually a really cool trade. He was really excited. And then basically we started the teardown of the booth. The loadout was super easy. Once they opened up the bay doors, that was ridiculous in and of itself. We were waiting almost an hour for that to happen. But because of what we had done for setup, teardown was super easy. The one downside is I had bought a copy of the new Dune board game. Basically, they took the Avalon Hill game, streamlined it, and then skinned it with stuff from the upcoming movie. I had bought a copy of it, and I left it on the floor of the convention center. That was absolutely 110% my mistake. So instead of getting to open it and review it and play it again, I have to wait for it to get released like normal, which is horrible. But, oh well. At that point, we drove back to Chicago, and the only game that I got to play that night was Suitcase Tetris, so that we could take all of the stuff that we acquired, fit it into our suitcases, and keep it under the weight limits, which we did. Now, the reason I point that out is Madara itself is about 25 pounds. It fit just perfectly in my son's suitcase. And so then we shuffled some other stuff around, took some stuff out of suitcases, and managed to get them all squared away and under weight limit. And there were no issues getting home. We got about 3 hours of sleep and then caught that first flight out of Chicago back to Arizona. All right, so final thoughts. I am absolutely grateful that I got to go. Big shout out, big thank you to Mantic Games for letting us come and help and get into the show. I'm not going to dwell on the masks or the social distancing. The inconsistency did annoy me, but I know that they're worried about their liability, and I would much rather have the event happen than not happen. And especially because they did say that if they didn't, then they were probably going to go out of business. So I don't think that's good for the industry. And I'm just grateful that the show went off. Now, on top of that, I also came home with a lot more than I was expecting to. Like I said, I will get more unboxing videos, review videos coming out soon as I have some time. Unfortunately, most of this week has been spent building a new coop for my chickens. And that has literally occupied pretty much all of the time that I have. And the kids have occupied the computer the rest of it. So that's where that is. But regardless, I do hope I get to go to GenCon again. If you haven't made the trek yet, I absolutely recommend it. It is an absolutely wonderful 4 days in gaming, and there's so much going on that I absolutely could not recommend it enough. One other thing that I do want to point out is this year they didn't have a cosplay parade, which was the greatest thing ever. In the past, it has, just disrupted the entire convention, and to not have it this year, oh my gosh, it was amazing. They still had a cosplay contest. They still had people there in cosplay, but to not have the parade was amazing. So, anyways, those are my final thoughts. Did you get to go to GenCon? What did you think? Did GenCon keep you away? Regardless, let me know down in the comments. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I am, as of this recording, I am 5 subscribers away from 200. We're growing, and I'm still trying to get some great content out for you. So if you like what I'm doing, please hit that subscribe button and come along, and we'll talk more games. So with that being said, thank you for watching. I do appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.